It was just before midnight when Daniel accepted the final request on his rideshare app. The screen glowed softly, reflecting on the raindrops sliding down the windshield. The city seemed frozen in time, wrapped in a heavy silence that felt almost unreal. The wet asphalt hissed under the tires, a sharp, unsettling sound mingling with the steady whisper of the drizzle. Daniel gripped the steering wheel, his fingers stiff and aching, joints numb as if frozen solid. He took a deep breath, hoping to find some warmth in the cold, damp air creeping in through the cracked window. The windshield wipers swept back and forth, scraping the glass with a grating noise, like nails on a chalkboard, that sent a shiver down his spine. Every swipe felt like a warning he couldn't quite understand. He glanced at the app. Padre Lemos Street, number 214. A short ride, the last one for the night. He eased the car around a corner. The narrow street emerged under the weak yellow glow of the street lamps. Trees, twisted by the wind, cast dancing shadows across the slick pavement. No movement, no sound except the rustling leaves and the wind's soft moan. Daniel's muscles tensed, his whole body on alert. It was as if something unseen was watching him from the dark. Then he saw them. Under the shelter of an old abandoned bus stop across from a cemetery's stone wall, a couple waited. The woman sat on the cold metal bench, dressed in a soaked white dress and a green wool sweater, her eyes fixed on some distant point. The man stood beside her, tall and imposing in a suit, tie, and a black overcoat that swallowed what little light there was. Daniel eased the car to a stop. His fingers throbbed painfully around the steering wheel. He tried warming them by blowing softly, but the heat faded too fast. The cold was a blade, cutting deep through his bones. The couple got in without hurry. Only the woman returned his "good evening" with a faint smile. The man stayed silent, staring out the window. Adjusting the GPS, Daniel tried to shake off the growing unease. Just one last ride. Then he could shut down the app and get home to warmth and rest. But that night, the city felt like it was waiting for something. And Daniel had no idea what it was. The car left the main street, winding through a maze of alleys and narrow lanes. Daniel knew this route well, but tonight felt different. Darker, heavier, like the shadows were closing in tighter than usual. Inside the car, silence pressed down like a thick fog, broken only by the tires splashing through puddles. The woman in the back seat watched the passing scenery with calm, distant eyes. The man remained stiff and still, fingers interlaced over his knee. A knot formed in Daniel's stomach. Something was off. He couldn't put his finger on it. He tried to break the silence, voicing the unease. "You live around here. It doesn't seem very lively this late." The woman smiled, but it was slow, detached. "We live nearby," she said without looking at him, staring into the darkness swallowing the street. Daniel wanted to press further, but their silence was a wall. When the GPS turned onto an even narrower street, Daniel noticed the change in the environment. Old houses with shuttered windows, curtains fluttering in the cold wind. No lights on anywhere. The rain picked up, pounding the roof with a hypnotic rhythm. Daniel felt his chest tighten, heart racing, as if trying to escape. The woman broke the silence again. "Do you know St. Remy Hospital?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I do," he said, his voice dry. "That's where I had surgery, a transplant." The weight inside the car grew heavier. "I know," the woman replied firmly. Daniel blinked, struggling to process her words. She wasn't an ordinary passenger. She was more like a shadow from the past he was trying to forget. Fear crept into his mind. The car pressed onward, deeper into the abandoned edges of the city. The rain was steady now, thicker, as Daniel followed the road leading to the old St. Remy hospital. The fog clung low to the ground, wrapping the gnarled trees like silent sentinels. In the distance, the hospital's outline emerged, half hidden in shadows and veils of rain. Broken windows caught the faint flickers from rusted street lamps, and the iron gate, heavy with rust and tangled ivy, creaked softly in the cold wind. Daniel slowed the car. The familiarity of the place clashed sharply with the growing dread tightening his chest. "Are you sure you want to come here?" he asked, voice low, trying to hide the tremor. The woman only nodded, a calm smile barely touching her lips. The man stayed silent, staring at the rusted gate like it held a secret he was guarding. Daniel reached for his phone to end the ride and move on, but the screen froze, showing a blurry image of the hospital's facade. The air thickened. The dampness of the night seemed to become a physical weight, pulling him down. Hands shaking, Daniel pushed open the car door and stepped out. Every footstep on the wet ground echoed loudly in his mind, like the ticking of a countdown. Then the old man appeared, as suddenly as the fog itself, small, bent, eyes sharp and piercing. His soaked coat clung to him, and in his hands was a small saucer with a candle burning, the flame flickering wildly in the cold breeze. "Don't go in," he whispered hoarsely. "The only safe place is the chapel." Daniel hesitated. The old man vanished into the trees, leaving behind a silence even heavier than before. He looked toward the couple who were already making their way inside the hospital. Daniel's heart hammered hard, a reminder of the transplant that had given him a second chance at life. Now, it seemed the past had come back to claim him. Daniel stepped into the hospital, the weight of dread pressing down on his chest. The cold wind followed him inside, slicing through his skin like invisible blades. The main corridor lay shrouded in darkness, lit only by scattered beams sneaking through cracks in shattered windows. The air reeked of mold and rust, mingled with a sharp metallic scent. Dried blood, or something far older and more sinister. Each footstep echoed hollow and haunting, swallowed quickly by stained walls. The feeling of unseen eyes watching him grew unbearable. The couple moved silently ahead. The woman's cold, fixed gaze seemed to anticipate something. The man, stoic and still, held himself like a ruler surveying his domain. Daniel felt her stare burn into him, like he was an intruder in a place where he didn't belong. Suddenly, she stopped, turning slowly to face him. "Do you remember that night?" she asked, voice low but certain. "It was raining. You arrived barely alive." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. "How do you know that?" His voice trembled. The man stepped closer, his dark eyes deep and unfathomable. "Because we were there. I gave you that heart. He gestured toward the woman. "She's the original owner." The truth hit Daniel like a punch. His world spun, the ground seeming to vanish beneath him. The woman pulled off her wool sweater, revealing a long scar etched across her chest. "I died so you could live. Or rather, I was killed." Before Daniel could speak, the old man reappeared at the doorway, holding his candle saucer. "There's still time," he whispered urgently. "Go to the chapel." The woman glared at him with pure hatred. Stay out of this. He belongs to me." The doctor grabbed Daniel's shoulders, pushing him toward a rusted table. The smell of iron and blood filled the air. Daniel knew his fate was sealed. The hospital's cold seemed to intensify, biting at Daniel's skin like shards of ice. The air grew heavier, compressing his lungs and clouding his mind. The doctor's dark eyes bore into Daniel's soul, a cruel smile twitching at the corner of his lips. "You know this heart was never meant for you," he said quietly, voice thick with menace. "It was taken by means you can't even imagine." The woman, her white dress now stained and clinging, stepped closer. "I was torn from life, sold, sacrificed so he could thrive. Now, I want what's mine." Daniel tried to back away but found himself rooted by the doctor's grip. The old man appeared again at the doorway, candle flickering in the dim light. "If you want to live, run to the chapel." But the doctor's grip tightened, blocking any hope of escape. "You can't run from your fate." The woman's eyes burned with an ancient fury, a justice no living soul could evade. Daniel's breath hitched. Time slowed as horror settled in, thick and suffocating. Daniel's scream was swallowed by the damp, decaying walls of the hospital. A sound lost in the void. Hours later, the police arrived, called by a neighbor who'd noticed the car idling for far too long. They found the vehicle with the doors wide open, no signs of struggle or forced entry. Inside, in the driver's seat, lay Daniel's lifeless body. His chest was ripped open, bare and exposed. The heart, that vital organ that had beaten within him for years, was gone. A mystery no one could explain.